So for this video, I'm going to be going over some of my old live streaming content. So this one was the design that won the poll. It was the one where I was like, okay, we'll be taking a bag of gummy worms, specifically sour gummy worms. We'll be turning that into a character. For some reason, my brain was like, I want to create a Splatoonish-like character. So I kind of copied those sort of proportions. But I also wanted to do it for speed. So I was like, we're going to be working with my more chibi-esque style just so that I can do a bunch of these designs really, really quickly. Gummy worms are very, very bright. They're very, very gelatinous. Especially with the sour ones, they're very, very fuzzy. So I was like, I kind of wanted to create a character who held that same bounciness, the same roundness. So I had like, you know, the bubble jacket, the cropped bubble jacket up top, and then I had the multicolored dreads. Specifically, there were these pastel multicolored dreads. That was the main thing that I wanted to do. When it came to the lining, I really wanted, like, I didn't want the lines to be too smooth. I wanted to keep them, like, nice and somewhat rough. That's a look I've been liking recently, is like the kind of rough look to the lines, so like not all of them are closed. See, I say that my lines look rough, and then everyone's like, Jessie, your lines are so clean. But for this character specifically, I wanted that sort of like textured brush look. I always find that I work a bit faster when I work with a textured brush, because then I'm like, oh, it doesn't need to be perfect because it's not as sharp of a brush. So the more textured brush, it tends to be my quick brush. That's the one that I use when I want to work fast. But when it came to my lining as well, I wanted to make sure that everything was rounded. I didn't want any harsh edges. I didn't want anything to be too sharp. So I made sure to constantly round stuff back out and work in big, long strokes that were nice and rounded, nice and bouncy, because I wanted this character to be bouncy. I wanted him to be very, very friendly looking. I didn't want anybody who was a bit spookier, you know. I love my spooky designs, but this was a bit I wanted him to be a bit friendlier.
If you'd like to support the channel and the creation of free arts education, become a member on Patreon.
When it comes to the color palette, obviously I was inspired by the gummy worms. This was a design that won the poll. If you go into the community tab for our YouTube channel, you'll be able to see all of the different live stream polls that we have there. The main thing that I thought of was like the hair, and I'm like, oh, I could do like dreadlocks with like this gummy worm sort of aesthetic, this sort of the gummy worm coloring. And I was like, okay, that's the only thing I have down. What now? So the main thing that I thought of was like, okay, if I have a really, really pastel hair, I want to make sure that the colors balance out. So how I balanced out, I kept the hair really pastel, but I made the skin tone a bit darker, so then that would help balance out the colors that I chosen. Because having an all light palette, that's fine technically, but I was like, I wanted these colors to pop. So the best way to make colors pop a little bit more is to, you know, put them on a darker surface. Especially like the hair was all multicolored, the jacket was all multicolored, but obviously if I made anything else crazy multicolored, then it would be maybe just a bit too much. So I kept the shirt underneath and the pants pretty neutral. But there's a thing that you have when you're designing, it's called letting features echo throughout the design. And what I was doing was I was letting this pastel rainbow echo throughout the entire design, because obviously I have it at the top of the head is where the hair is, and that's where it started. And then I was like, okay, I can't just isolate that rainbow to one section because it'll feel unbalanced. Say if I only did the rainbow for the hair, and then I was like, okay, I'm gonna leave it there and then everything else will be neutral. That's gonna be way too bright in a single section, right? We want to make sure that we have that rainbow moving throughout the entire design, not in just one section. So I really wanted that cropped rainbow jacket. And then again, I can't just leave those at the top half, because if I don't bring it back down to the bottom, then it'll feel too top heavy with that kind of detail. So I brought it down to the shoes as well, though I muted it a bit more with the shoes because they weren't like asymmetrical or anything. They're just kept in that sort of traditional triadic scheme, you know, the red, yellow, blue. So that's kind of how I balanced out and designed this character on the spot. I had a lot of these thoughts prior to the stream. Like the first thing that I thought of was the hair, obviously, but then I had this vision prior to the stream. So that first thought that I had with the hair helped me spiral into more than just that single section, basically.
Tune into our weekly live streams for art tips and demos in real time. Subscribe and hit that little bell to get notifications for when we're live.
Join a virtual class to learn live from our professional artists. Get creative assignments, individual guidance, and real-time feedback on your artwork. Start today and level up your practice. If you learned something new, like and share this with a fellow art nerd. If you love receiving quality and free arts education, subscribe.
If you enjoyed this video, here's a couple other videos you can check out next.